Dear friends, welcome to Tutorial 2 of Microsoft Excel. Today we will learn average, AverageIF and AverageIFS functions in Microsoft Excel. Like addition, subtraction, multiplication and division in Tutorial 1, average is also one of the frequently used functions in our mathematical calculations. We will be using the same data table of revenue earned by 12 departments of ABC Corporation which we used in Tutorial 1. For explanation on the structure of the table, please refer to Tutorial 1. As we discussed in Tutorial 1, gross revenue of all the 12 departments of ABC Corporation have been presented in 3 different formats. We will explain to you the calculation errors you may encounter while performing average function in Excel if the desired results are different. Let's start with the average function. As we have learnt in school, average is also known as arithmetic mean and is computed by dividing sum of the group of numbers with the count of those numbers. As an example, we will calculate the average departmental gross revenue earned by ABC Corporation. We have the gross revenue numbers of the 12 departments. Firstly, we calculate the average departmental gross revenue without using the average function of Microsoft Excel to check the results across the 3 different formats of presenting it. We go to cell D20 and put an equals sign, and then we use sum function to calculate the total gross revenue of all the 12 departments and divide it by 12. Now we repeat the same for table format 2 and table format 3. As you see, the results are same across the 3 different formats chosen to present the data, that is an average gross revenue of $58,333. Now we use the average function to calculate the average departmental gross revenue of ABC Corporation. We put an equals sign and type AVER or average followed by a tab button. Excel will request you to choose number 1, number 2 and so on. Rather selecting cells separately, we will select an array that is from cell D8 to D19 and press Enter button on the keyboard. Excel will display the result of the average of the gross revenue earned by the 12 departments of ABC Corporation. You may observe the difference between the 2 methods we followed for calculating the average. In the first method, we received the average gross revenue as $58,333, whereas while using the average function we received a different average gross revenue value of $77,778. Why? To answer this, first let's calculate the average gross revenue for table format 2 and table format 3. You may observe, data format 3 still provides you the same average of $58,333. I now explain to you the reason for the difference in result values. In table format 1 and table format 2, while performing the average function, Excel only picks up the number cells and omit the non-number cell, which means, the average is calculated for only 9 departments as 3 departments are shown as text none or are left blank. You may recall, the total gross revenue of all the 12 departments was calculated as $700. Now, we manually calculate the average of numbers in table format 1 with 9 departments. We put an equals sign in cell D20 and divide 700 with 9 and press Enter. The result is $77,778. Thus I reiterate, if you want to carry out mathematical analysis of the numbers in Excel, it is always advisable to keep your data formatted as number and do not leave any blank or text cells in between. In order for you to practice, I have prepared a blank table on the right in which you should calculate the average operating margins of product green, product blue as well as for the entire ABC Corporation using average function of Excel. I hope this tutorial was helpful in learning average function in Microsoft Excel. The second part of this tutorial is to learn AverageIF or AverageIFS functions. We will be using the same table of data which we used in Tutorial 1 for learning multiplication and division in Excel. So, the first question before we start is, what is AverageIF or AverageIFS? If we want to calculate conditional average from the available data, we use these functions. If there is a single criteria for conditional average, we use AverageIF, otherwise we have to use AverageIFS. To understand these functions better, let's perform these in Excel. The table on the right-hand side provides the criteria for AverageIF and criteria for AverageIFS. To understand AverageIF, firstly our task is to calculate average gross revenue of the departments which have achieved a gross revenue of more than $50,000. Secondly, we will calculate the average gross revenue of the departments which have cost of goods as more than or equal to $20,000. In cell K8, we put an equals sign and type AverageIF and press a tab button on keyboard. Excel will ask you to enter the array or a range of cells to apply the criteria and then the criteria followed by the array or a range of cells for which the average is to be calculated. If the range to apply the criteria and the range for which the average is to be calculated are same, we just have to select range of cells to apply the criteria and then the criteria. In our first task, since the range to apply the criteria and the range for which the average is to be calculated are same, we select the array D8 to D19 as criteria range followed by a comma. In the criteria, we will open a double quote, insert the greater than sign on keyboard and enter 50 as criteria and close the double quote. Alternatively, to provide cell reference as criteria, we select the array D8 to D19 as criteria range followed by a comma. In the criteria, we will open a double quote, insert the greater than sign on keyboard and close the double quote and insert and sign and select the cell J8 to provide reference to the criteria cell. Here we should note that while using functions such as AverageIF, AverageIFS, SumIF, SumIFS, CountIF, etc. to refer to a cell rather than hard-coding the criteria, we open the double quote and type the criteria to apply that is greater than, less than, equal to, greater than equal to or less than equal to and close the double quote. Before providing the criteria cell reference we must put enter and unsign and then give the criteria cell reference. Once we press the enter button, Excel will calculate the average gross revenue of departments which is greater than $50,000. In our second task, the range to apply the criteria and the range for which the average is to be calculated are different. In cell K9, we put equals sign and type AverageIF and press a tab button on the keyboard. Since out criteria is $value of cost of goods, we first select the array F8 to F19 as criteria range followed by a comma. In the criteria, we will open a double quote, insert the greater than and equals sign on keyboard and close the double quote and insert and sign and select the cell J9 to provide reference to the criteria cell. Again, after inserting a comma we will select the cell D8 to D19 as reference for average range. Once we press the enter button, Excel will calculate the average gross revenue of departments which have $value of cost of goods greater than or equal to $20,000. I hope this tutorial was helpful in learning AverageIF function in Microsoft Excel. Now we will learn average with multiple criteria. In order to learn this, our task is to calculate the average value of gross turnover of departments using two criteria. First criteria is to select departments which have cost of goods as percentage of gross revenue more than 30%, and second criteria is $value of cost of goods equal to $20,000 or more. To calculate the average using these two criteria, in cell K12, after putting an equals sign we will type AverageIFS and press tab button on the keyboard. Excel will first request for reference of the array of cells for which the average is to be calculated. In our case, it is gross revenue and hence we select cell D8 to D19. For our first criteria, which is cost of goods as percentage of gross revenue, we select E8 to E19 and after a comma sign, we open a double quote and enter greater than sign and close the double quote. After typing and sign, we will provide J12 as reference for criteria for array E8 to E19. After inserting another comma, for our second criteria, which is $value of cost of goods, we will select F8 to F19 as the criteria range. After a comma sign, we open a double quote and enter greater than equals sign and close the double quote. After putting an and sign, we will provide J13 as reference for second criteria for array F8 to F19. Once all the three aspects, the cell range to calculate the average, the cell range and first criteria and the cell range and second criteria are entered, we will press enter on the keyboard. Excel will calculate the average value of gross turnover of those departments in ABC Corporation which have cost of goods as percentage of gross revenue more than 30% and dollar value of cost of goods equal to $20,000 or more. To understand AverageIFS better, let's check this calculation manually. We will first highlight the departments which have the cost of goods as percentage of gross revenue more than 30%, which are departments 3, 8, 10, 11 and 12. Now we will highlight the departments which have dollar value of cost of goods equal to $20,000 or more, which are departments 8, 11 and 12. The total gross revenue of departments 8, 11 and 12 is $235,000 and thus the average is $78,333. That's it for this tutorial. We wish you good luck for learning other functions in Microsoft Excel. If you liked the video, please do hit the like button for this video and also subscribe to our channel Management Gen to receive all the updates.